Hey there! Thanks so much for your ongoing support. It really means a lot to us. If you're enjoying the stories we share, we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel. And if you leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, we might just give you a shout out in our next story. A special shout out today goes to Terry Lawson in South Africa. Thanks for being a fan, Terry. Now, let's get into today's story. I'm Alvin, and I guess you could say my story began the day everything I thought I had came crashing down. At the time, I was just a guy living in a small town. Harriston. The kind of place where everyone knows your business before you do. I was 23, working at the local hardware store, stacking lumber and ringing up nails for people who'd known me since I was a kid. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. And then there was Lily. She was everything to me. She had dark hair that fell in waves and a laugh that made everything feel lighter. We'd been together for 2 years, and I was saving up for a ring. Not anything fancy. Just something simple to slip on her finger and say, "You're mine, and I'm yours." That summer I got a chance to earn some extra cash. A buddy hooked me up with a 3-week job hauling hay an hour away. It was tough work, sweat soaking through my shirt, dust choking my throat. But every time I threw a bale, I thought of Lily. I'd call her at night from a creaky payphone outside the bunkhouse. Her voice came through the static, soft and sweet. "I miss you," she'd say. And I'd grin like an idiot, counting down the days until I could see her again. What I didn't know was that my mom was counting down too, but for a very different reason. When I pulled back into Harriston, my truck rattling down Main Street, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. I'd made enough money to start a savings account, and maybe even take Lily somewhere nice. I headed straight to her place first. A small shotgun house with peeling paint and flowers she'd planted blooming out front. When I knocked, her mom answered the door, her lips tight like she'd just sucked on a lemon. "She's not here, Alvin," she said, barely glancing at me. "You'd better talk to your family." My stomach dropped. I drove home, dust kicking up behind me, and walked straight into chaos. My mom, Margaret, was in the kitchen, flour on her apron, barking orders at my brother James like she was in charge of an army. James, 6 feet 3 inches, and always wearing that cocky smirk, was leaning against the counter. And then I saw it. The ring. A cheap gold band on his hand. Not the one I had dreamed of buying. "Where's Lily?" I asked, my voice harsher than I meant it to be. Mom turned around, wiping her hands on her apron like she was brushing me off. "She's with James now, Alvin. They're engaged. It's done." The room spun. I looked at James, his grin spreading like he'd just won some huge prize. I swear I could have punched through the wall. "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, stepping closer. "Calm down," Mom snapped. "Lily needed a man, not a boy chasing pipe dreams. James is strong, steady. He's got a future. You're just... you." Her words hit me like a punch. I'd spent my whole life trying to make her proud, fixing the porch when it sagged, working overtime so she didn't have to stress about bills. And James? He just coasted. He leaned on his charm and never lifted a finger unless it benefited him somehow. And now he had Lily. I stormed out, tires screeching, and headed straight to see her. This time, she was there. Sitting on the porch swing, her eyes red. "Alvin?" She started, but I cut her off. "Is it true?" She nodded, twisting her hands in her lap. "Your mom, she said you'd never be enough. That James could take care of me. I didn't know what to do." "You didn't know what to do?" I laughed, but it came out hollow. "You could have waited 3 damn weeks. You could have called me." Tears started to spill down her cheeks. Part of me wanted to hold her, tell her everything would be okay. But the other part, The part that saw James's smug grin and heard Mom's cold words knew it was over. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't say anything back. I just walked away. Her sobs faded behind me. That night I sat in my room staring at the walls I'd grown up in. The pictures of us as kids, me and James fishing, Mom smiling at a picnic, felt like lies. I wasn't part of their family anymore. I was the extra. The one they tossed aside when something new and shiny came along. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I packed a duffel bag, clothes, a toothbrush, and the $50 I had left from the hay job. Mom was in the living room, knitting, acting like nothing had changed. "Where are you going?" she asked, not even glancing up. "Anywhere but here," I said. She didn't stop me. James wasn't around, probably off somewhere gloating. I got in my truck and drove. The town disappeared behind me in the rearview mirror. I had no idea where I was headed, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them break me again. Leaving Harriston felt like shedding an old skin. My truck rattled down the highway, the radio crackling with static. I didn't stop until the gas gauge was almost empty. That's how I ended up in Easton. A city big enough to swallow me whole. It was all concrete and noise, a world away from the quiet fields I'd left behind. I had $50, a duffel bag, and a fire inside me that wouldn't die out. The first few days, I slept in my truck. Windows cracked, parked behind a diner where the cooks didn't care as long as I was gone by dawn. I'd wake up stiff, my neck aching, then splash cold water in a gas station sink just to feel human again. I needed a job. Fast. So I walked into every place with a help wanted sign. Most people took one look at my faded jeans and said, "We'll call you." They never did. Finally, I landed a warehouse job, loading crates onto trucks for $10 an hour. It was tough, brutal work. My arms felt like they were on fire after the first shift, sweat dripping into my eyes. The foreman, Rick, had a voice like gravel. "Move it, new kid," he'd shout. And every time I wanted to quit, I'd grit my teeth, picturing James's smug grin. I wasn't strong like him. Not yet. But I'd be damned if that was going to stop me. Nights were the hardest. I crashed in a cheap motel, paying by the week. Walls thin enough to hear the guy next door coughing like he was dying. I'd lie there, staring at the water stains on the ceiling, thinking about Lily. Her face would sneak into my mind. That laugh. Then I'd hear Mom's voice. "You're just you." And I'd roll over, punching the pillow until that thought finally quieted. One day I saw a flyer taped to a pole outside the warehouse. Night classes. Learn a trade. Build a future. It was at the community college just a few blocks away. I'd never been great at school, barely scraped through high school. But something about that word future stuck with me. So I signed up for a basic computer class. Figured it couldn't hurt. That's where I met Sarah. She sat in the back row, typing away on her keyboard like it was second nature. Short brown hair, freckles across her nose, and a smile that didn't feel forced. We got paired up for some dumb assignment, making a spreadsheet. I struggled through it, muttering to myself. "Relax," she said, leaning over to fix my mess. "It's not brain surgery." Her fingers flew across the keys. I just watched, feeling like a kid who'd accidentally sat in the wrong seat. After class, we grabbed coffee at a diner across the street. Black for me. Cream and sugar for her. She told me she grew up in Easton. Worked as a cashier, but was looking for something more. "I'm not staying behind a register forever," she said, stirring her coffee. "What about you?" I wasn't sure how to answer. "Just trying to figure it out," I mumbled. She nodded like she understood. We started talking after class most nights. First about the course, then about random stuff. Movies, the best cheap eats in town. She had this way of making me forget the weight I carried around. Work started getting steadier. Rick yelled less and even clapped me on the shoulder once, saying, "You're not half bad, kid." I saved enough to leave the motel and get a tiny apartment. Peeling paint, a mattress on the floor. But it was mine. Sarah came over one night with a pizza and laughed at how bare my place was. "You need a chair or something," she teased, sitting cross-legged on the carpet. We ate straight from the box, grease staining our fingers. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something ease in my chest. Not love. Not yet. But a crack of light in the dark. Then came my break. A guy at the warehouse mentioned his cousin's startup needed help. Something to do with tech, building apps or gadgets. I wasn't sure. "They want people who work hard," he said. I showed up in my cleanest shirt, palms sweating, and talked to a skinny guy in a hoodie named Tim. He asked what I could do. I told him, "Anything. If you teach me." I guess that was good enough. He hired me as an assistant, running errands, hauling gear, whatever they needed. It was a step up, and I got to watch these smart folks code and argue about stuff I barely understood. I soaked it all in, asking questions when they'd let me. By the end of my first year in Easton, I wasn't the same guy who'd left Harriston. My hands were calloused. My bank account had a few $100 in it. And I had Sarah. Well, not had her. But she was there, steady as a heartbeat. One night, as I was walking her home from class, she slipped her hand into mine, just casual, like it was no big deal. I froze. Then I squeezed her hand back, my heart racing. "You're doing great, Alvin," she said, looking up at me. "Don't stop." I wasn't planning to. I'd lost everything once before, and I wasn't going to let that happen again. But as I walked back to my place, the city lights buzzing above, I couldn't shake the feeling this was just the beginning. Something bigger was coming. I could feel it. The company grew fast. Some app took off. First with college kids, then offices, and soon overseas. I worked late, barely slept, but I loved it. Sarah stuck with me through it all. After a year of dating, I asked her to move in. Nothing fancy, just my little apartment that now had a couch instead of just a mattress. She said yes, bringing in a box of books and a coffee pot, grinning like we'd won something. A year later, I proposed. No big scene, just us on the fire escape, city lights flickering below, with a ring I'd saved for 6 months. She cried, nodded, and that was that. We got married at City Hall, her in a white dress she'd found on sale, and me in a suit that pinched at the shoulders. No crowd, no fuss, just a few friends from work and her sister snapping pictures. I liked it that way. Quiet moments. Not long after, she got pregnant, and 9 months later, Mia was born. Tiny, loud, and already with Sarah's freckles on her nose. 2 years after that, Ethan came along. Chubby cheeks and little fists. I'd come home exhausted, and they'd climb all over me, giggling. Suddenly the weight of the day didn't feel so heavy. By then, I was CEO. Yeah, me. Alvin from Harriston. The guy who used to stack lumber, now running a company worth millions. Tim stepped back to focus on coding, and the board picked me to lead. I didn't make a big deal of it. I kept my truck, wore the same boots, and let Sarah handle the public stuff like interviews and fancy dinners. She was great at it, charming the suits with her quick laugh, while I stayed behind the scenes, making sure everything ran smoothly. We bought a house. Not a mansion, just a brick house with a yard for the kids. But we kept it low-key, didn't tell anyone who didn't need to know. I liked it that way. It felt safer. But the past didn't stay gone. It crept back in late at night when the house was quiet, and Sarah's soft breathing was beside me. I'd see Lily's face, hear Mum's voice cutting me down, and picture James flexing like he owned everything. I kept a box in the closet. Old photos. A letter from Mum I never opened. A picture of me and Lily at the county fair, her head resting on my shoulder. Sometimes I'd pull it out, stare at it for a bit, then shove it back. Sarah caught me once and asked what it was. Nothing. I lied. And she didn't press it. But I could tell by the way she looked at me, she knew. We were happy. Me, Sarah, the kids. But I still wasn't whole. Not yet. I'd built this life piece by piece and it was good. But there was a hole where Harriston used to be. I didn't miss them, not really. But I couldn't help wondering, did they ever think about me? Did Lily regret it? Did Mom even care? She lost a son. I'd push those thoughts down, focus on Mia's drawings or Ethan's babbling. But they lingered. Then the call came. I was in the office, papers spread across my desk when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, Harriston area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. Alvin? A gruff, familiar voice said. It's Uncle Pete, your dad's brother. Your dad's gone. Heart attack. Funeral Saturday. My throat tightened. Dad hadn't been perfect. Quiet. Let Mom run things. But he'd never hurt me like she did. I mumbled something about going to the funeral and hung up, staring at the wall. Sarah found me like that when she got home, the kids trailing behind her. What's wrong? She asked, setting Ethan down on the floor. I told her, my voice flat. You don't have to go. She put her hand on my arm, but I shook my head. I do. Not for Mom, not for James or Lily. Maybe for Dad, or maybe for me. I need to see this through. That night I couldn't sleep. I slipped out of bed, grabbed that box again. The letter from Mom was still sealed, postmarked, yours back. My hand shook as I tore it open. Alvin, come home. We miss you. James and Lily are struggling. Help us. No, sorry. Just a demand, like always. I crumpled the letter and tossed it in the trash. They didn't get to need me now. On Friday, I packed a bag, suit, tie, nothing flashy. Sarah hugged me tight at the door, Mia holding on to my leg. Be careful, Sarah said, her eyes searching mine. I will. I promised. As I drove out of Easton, the kids waving from the porch, I felt that familiar ache. Harriston was calling me back, and I wasn't sure what I'd find, but I knew one thing. I wasn't that broke kid anymore. Whatever was waiting there, I'd face it standing tall. The drive back to Harriston felt like crossing a line I'd drawn years ago. My truck hummed down the highway, fields blurring past, and every mile tightened the knot in my stomach. I hadn't been back since I left at 23, the tailpipe spitting dust behind me. Now, here I was at 35, with a life they knew nothing about. The radio played an old country song about lost love and I switched it off, didn't need the reminder. I rolled into town late on Friday. The sky was gray, heavy with the threat of rain. Harriston hadn't changed much, same sagging porches, same gas station with the broken sign. I pulled into a motel on the edge of town, a rundown brick building with flickering neon. The clerk barely looked up as I paid in cash for a room. The bed creaked. The sheets smelled like bleach. But it would do. I dropped my bag and stared at myself in the cracked mirror. Lines around my eyes. Hair thinning a little. I wasn't that kid anymore, but I could still feel him lurking inside me. Saturday morning, I put on the suit. Dark, simple. Nothing flashy. And drove to the church. It was the same one I'd gone to as a kid. White paint peeling, steeple leaning like it was worn out. The parking lot was full, people in black standing around, speaking in hushed tones. I parked at the back, took a deep breath, and stepped out. Heads turned. Old neighbors, cousins I hadn't seen in years. But no one said anything. Yeah, I was a ghost to them now. Inside, the pews were packed, the air thick with flowers and quiet whispers. I found a seat near the back, next to some guy I sort of remembered from high school. Then I saw them, Mom, James, Lily, up front like royalty. Mom's hair was grayer, pulled back tight in a bun, her face as sharp as ever. James was sitting there, broad-shouldered, his suit tight across his chest, looking bored. Lily, she looked thinner, eyes dull, hands folded in her lap. Time hadn't been kind to her, but I didn't feel sorry. Not yet. A woman leaned over. Mrs. Carter, who taught me Sunday school, and whispered, "They stuck you back here, huh?" Typical. Margaret, I shrugged, keeping quiet. I could feel Mom's eyes scanning the room, but she didn't notice me. James said something to Lily, and she just nodded, as blank as a doll. They probably thought I was nothing. Some broke nobody who had crawled back for scraps. Let them think that. The service started. The preacher droned on about Dad's life, how he worked the farm and loved his family. I barely listened. Dad had been quiet, always in Mom's shadow. But he taught me to fish and fixed my bike when I crashed it. He never stood up for me, though. Not once. I wondered if he'd tried to at the end. Then Uncle Pete stood up, clearing his throat, holding a piece of paper. "Alvin," he said, his voice loud and clear. "Your dad wanted you to read this." Heads turned and whispers spread through the room. Mom's face twitched, James frowned, and Lily's eyes flicked up. I stood up, feeling steady, and walked to the front. The aisle felt endless, each step echoing on the wooden floor. Pete handed me the paper, clapped me on the shoulder, and I faced the crowd. Dad's handwriting was there. Shaky, slanted, but real. "To my son, Alvin," I began, my voice low but clear. "I wasn't the father you deserved. I let things happen that I shouldn't have. But I've been watching you from afar, hearing about your life and your work. You turned nothing into something, and I'm proud of you. I'm sorry I didn't say it sooner." My throat tightened, but I kept going. "You're stronger than I ever was. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The room was silent. I glanced up. Mom's lips were pressed into a tight line. James shifted like he was about to bolt. Lily stared down at her hands. I could have stopped there, let it hang in the air, but something inside me snapped. "I brought my family today," I said, looking toward the back. "Sarah, kids, come on up." I heard footsteps. Sarah walked down the aisle with Mia and Ethan following her. She wore a simple, sharp black dress, her hair pulled back, and the kids looked like little adults. Mia in a skirt, Ethan in a tie. I gave a small nod. They reached me, Sarah's hand brushing against mine, and I turned back to the crowd. You could have heard a pin drop. Mom's face went pale like she'd seen a ghost. James's jaw dropped, eyes flicking between me and the kids. Lily blinked slowly like she was waking up. The rest of the church was buzzing, whispers, gasps, but I didn't care. I folded Dad's letter, slipped it into my pocket and said, "That's all." Then, I led my family back to our seats. Sarah's fingers laced with mine and Mia whispered, "Was that okay, Daddy?" I nodded, my throat too tight to say anything. The rest of the service faded into the background. Hymns, prayers, people walking past Dad's casket. I stayed in place, watching Mom twist her handkerchief, James staring at the floor, and Lily sneaking glances at me. They didn't speak, but I could feel it, their world shifting, breaking apart. Good. When it ended, Everyone spilled outside into the rain that had finally started falling. I stood under the open sky, Sarah beside me, while the kids played with a pebble they'd found. I thought that would be the end of it. A glance, a moment, and then I'd go. But then I saw them. Mom, James, and Lily cutting through the crowd. Faces I hadn't seen in 12 years. My heart picked up speed and I straightened up. Whatever they had to say, I was ready. The rain was steady now, tapping on the church awning like it had its own rhythm. I stayed there. Sarah close by, the kids splashing in puddles a few feet away. The crowd thinned out, people rushing to their cars, but I didn't move. My eyes were locked on Mom, James, and Lily, pushing through the crowd. Their faces were tense, like they'd rehearsed what they were about to say. It was the first time in 12 years since I'd left, and here they were, ready to say something I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. My hands were clenched in my pockets, but I kept my chin up. They didn't get to see me flinch. Mom reached me first. Her black dress soaked at the hem, her eyes sharp as ever. "Alvin," she said, her voice cool, like she was calling me in for dinner. "You should have told us you were coming." No greeting, no anything. Just that familiar tone, like I'd caused some kind of inconvenience. James stood behind her, arms crossed, rain dripping down his hair. Lily hung back, clutching an umbrella, looking smaller than I remembered. "Told you," I replied, keeping my voice level. "Didn't think you care." Her lips tightened. "Of course we care. Your family." She glanced at Sarah and the kids, then back at me, like she was trying to figure out a puzzle she couldn't solve. "What's all this? The suit? The wife? The kids?" I let her question hang in the air, the rain tapping between us. Sarah moved closer, her hand resting on my arm, steady as always. "This is my life," I said, my voice firm. "Built it myself. No thanks to you." James let out a laugh, breaking the silence. "What's that supposed to mean? You show up after all these years acting like you're some big shot, reading Dad's letter like you're better than us?" His voice had that sharp edge, the one he always used to put me down when we were kids. "Where have you been, huh? Where'd you leave me?" I shot back, locking eyes with him. "Out in the cold while you took everything I had." He flinched, just for a second, but I saw it. Mom stepped in, waving her hand like she was dismissing me. "That's not fair, Alvin. We did what was best for Lily, for the family. You were young, chasing dreams that never would have worked out." James stepped forward, his anger bubbling up. I let out a laugh, sharp and bitter. "He walked all over me, Mom. You pushed him to it. You told Lily I'd never be enough, handed her over like I was nothing. Don't act like it was for some noble reason." Then Lily spoke, her voice trembling as she stepped out from under her umbrella. "Alvin, I didn't mean to hurt you. Mom made it sound like you'd be gone for good, like you didn't care. I was scared." Her eyes were wet, but I couldn't tell if it was rain or tears. "I thought about you every day." I looked at her, really saw her. The girl I once loved was still there, buried under all the years of regret, but it didn't make me feel any softer. "You could have called," I said. "Could have waited 3 weeks. You chose Lily. Deal with it." Her gaze dropped, water dripping off her chin. James shifted, his jaw tight. "So what? You're rich now? Some big shot with a fancy job? Came here to shove it in our faces?" "CEO," I said flatly. "Built a company from nothing. I didn't come here to rub it in. I came for Dad. You're the ones who made it about me." Mom's eyes widened, just for a moment, before she masked it with a smile. "Well," she said, forcing it, "that's impressive. We always knew you had it in you, didn't we, James?" He just grunted, not really buying it. Maybe you could help us out. Things haven't been easy. James lost his job, the farm's struggling. Family helps family ... There it was. The ask. Same old mom, turning a knife into a handshake. For a second I saw red, flashes of memories. Her voice in the kitchen. You're just you. James smirking as he slipped that ring on, and Lily walking away. I took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. You didn't help me, I said. When I was sleeping in my truck, eating gas station sandwiches. Where were you? Oh, right, writing letters begging after you'd already cut me loose. That's not... Mom started, but I cut her off. You made your choices. I made mine. We're done. I turned to Sarah, giving her a nod. She called the kids, and Mia and Ethan came running over, blissfully unaware of the storm around them. Let's go, I said, and we headed toward the truck. Mom's voice chased me. Alvin, wait! We're sorry, okay? We didn't know. I didn't stop. Rain soaked my suit, Sarah's hand steady in mine. James shouted something, probably a curse, but it got lost in the rain. Lily didn't say a word, and I didn't look back. The truck door slammed shut, and Mia was giggling about her wet socks while Ethan asked if we could grab burgers. Sarah squeezed my knee, quiet, giving me space to breathe as we pulled away. I caught a quick glimpse in the rearview mirror. Mom standing there, her arms hanging limp. James kicking at the mud, and Lily hiding under her umbrella like a shadow. They looked small, lost, like the rain had washed away whatever hold they'd once had on me. I didn't feel anything really. No happiness, no anger. Just relief. Like a weight I'd been carrying for years finally fell off. Dad? Mia asked from the back. Were those people mad at you? No, I said, forcing a smile. Just surprised, kiddo. It's been a while. She nodded, satisfied, and started chattering to Ethan. Sarah glanced at me. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. And for the first time, I really meant it. The road stretched out in front of us, with Harriston fading in the rearview, and I knew I'd never return. They'd seen me, seen what I'd built, and that was enough. The rain trailed us out of Harriston, streaking the windshield as I drove. The truck's wipers squeaked with every pass. Mia and Ethan chatted in the back, while Sarah sat quietly beside me, her hand resting on my leg. I kept my eyes on the road, the lights blurring through the wet, but my mind was still back at that church. Mom's tight face, James's glare, and Lily holding her umbrella like it was the last thing keeping her upright. I didn't say much, just let the miles pass by. The hum of the engine filling the space where words didn't quite belong. We stopped at a diner an hour out, some hole in the wall with neon buzzing in the window. The kids were starving, and Ethan had been begging for burgers since we left. Inside, it smelled like grease and coffee, the kind of place where the waitress calls you Han and the booths are patched with tape. Mia slid in next to me, swinging her legs while Ethan climbed into Sarah's lap, smearing ketchup on his shirt. 5 minutes in, I ruffled Ethan's hair. You're a mess, buddy. He grinned, teeth full of fries, watching them laugh over dumb stuff like who'd finish first. I felt my chest loosen up. This was mine. Nobody could take it. Sarah caught my eye across the table, her smile soft. You're quiet, she said, wiping Ethan's hands with a napkin. Still thinking about it, I admitted, poking at my fries. Not them, though, not really. Just how it's over. She nodded like she got it and didn't push. That's how she was. Knew when to let me stew. We finished up, paid the bill, and piled back into the truck. The rain had eased to a drizzle, the sky bruising purple as night crept in. The kids dozed off halfway home, heads lolling against each other. Sarah leaned her head on my shoulder. Proud of you, she murmured, half asleep. I didn't answer, just squeezed her hand. but it stuck with me. Back in Easton, pulling into our driveway felt like landing after a long fall. The house glowed warm. Brick, simple hours. I carried Ethan in, his little arms limp around my neck while Sarah scooped up Mia. We tucked them in their rooms, messy with toys and crayon scribbles. And I stood there a minute, watching them breathe. They didn't know what Harriston meant, didn't carry that weight. Good. I'd made damn sure that. Downstairs, Sarah poured us coffee and we sat on the couch, mugs steaming. The quiet settled in thick but not heavy. "You going to tell me what happened?" she asked, curling her legs under her. So I did. Everything. Dad's letter. The way it hit me. How Mom begged, James cursed, Lily just stood there. I told her about the rain, the walk away, how it didn't feel like winning. Just letting go. "Did you want to forgive them?" she asked, sipping her coffee. I thought about it, staring at the steam curling up. "No," I said finally. "Not because I hate them, I don't. Not anymore. Just, they don't get a piece of this, what we've got, it's ours. They lost their shot." She smiled, small but real, and set her mug down. "Then that's that," she said, leaning into me. We sat like that a while, TV flickering, some late-night show we didn't watch. And I felt the last knot in my gut unwind. I'd faced them, stood tall, and walked away. It was done. The next morning I was up early. Habit, I guess. The kids were still out, house quiet except for the coffee pot gurgling. I went to the closet, dug out that old box I'd kept too long. The pictures spilled out. Me and James with fishing poles, Mom at a picnic, Lily laughing at the fair. I flipped through them, waiting for the sting, but it didn't come. Just memories, faded like the paper. Then I saw it. The crumpled letter from Mom I'd trashed back in Harriston. I'd fished it out before we left, shoved it in my back pocket. Why? I don't know. I smoothed it out, read it again. "Come home. We miss you. Help us." Same old tune. But there was something else tucked in the envelope. A smaller note I'd missed. Dad's writing, shaky like the tribute. "Alvin, I left you the old watch. It's not much, but it's yours. I should have given you more. Forgive me." My breath caught. The watch. His dad's. A beat-up silver thing he'd worn every day. I hadn't seen it at the funeral. Figured Mom kept it. Guess he'd hidden it from me. I sat there, turning the note over in my hands. Dad hadn't fought for me alive, but he tried at the end. It wasn't enough to fix it all, but it was something. I tucked the note back, slid the box under the bed. Not gone. Just out of sight. Maybe I'll get the watch later. Maybe not. Didn't matter right now. Sarah came down, hair messy, robe tied loose. "You're up early," she said, pouring coffee. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said, and this time it was true. "Want to take the kids to the park later?" She grinned. "Only if you push the swings." "Deal." That afternoon we did. Parked down the street. Sun breaking through the clouds. Mia squealed as I pushed her high. Ethan toddled after a butterfly. Sarah laughed on a bench. I caught my reflection in a puddle, older, steadier. A guy who'd made it. Harriston was miles behind, a shadow I didn't need to chase anymore. I'd built this family, home, a life, and it was enough. Driving back, kids singing off-key in the back, I glanced in the rear view. They were my future. Not that town. Not those people. I smiled, small but real, and turned up the radio. The road ahead was clear, and I was good with that. Well, that's my story. How I lost it all, built it back, and found my way. Took a lot of miles and a few scars to get here, but I'd do it again for what I've got now. What about you? Ever had to walk away from something or someone to find what's real? I'd love to hear your take. Drop it in the comments section. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share this story with your friends. See you soon in our next story.